We are coming in with the Reason Livestream. Let me know you're getting me. Let me know you're getting sound. Let me know you're getting picture. I want to know the whole system is working. Let's listen to the song for a little bit. I gotta say, this is one of the new demo songs by Sean Murray. If people don't know Sean Murray's sound packs in Reason Plus, the Reason Plus sound packs and the Reason Companion, you guys are missing out. The man is a wizard of, really, he's a wizard of sound design, but he's also just a wizard of production. I mean, listen to this. He's got all these little subtle layers. Like, I don't know where you learn this stuff. I don't know, when I do music production stuff, I don't know where I learned it. You sort of just absorb it over time. And Sean's really absorbed some neat understanding of how production layers work and stuff. And when he got his hands on Polytone, he really went to town here, throwing Polytone, throwing Ripley, using the new sidechain tool and stuff to arrive at this demo song. And he's done a bang up job. And the great part is, in Reason 13, you can open it up and explore it and see what he's doing. See how it ticks. You don't have to just listen to this and think of it as like some sort of mysterious finished production. You can actually rip it apart and look under the hood and see how it works. So, guys, how are you doing? It's the Reason Livestream. I am here with you, as we often do. It's something of a tradition now. A new release comes out, and within a day or two, Matias and I are jumping on the live stream to talk to you guys, which is exactly what is happening here. How's everyone doing? Let me know in the comments how you're getting on with Reason 13. Have you downloaded Reason 13 yet? Have you not yet downloaded it? If not, what are you waiting for? And if you have downloaded it and you've started getting into it, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Polytone and Ripley, the new utility devices, the browser, some of this new reworked workflow if you're using the Reason DAW. If you're not using the Reason DAW, let us know how it's all integrating into your own DAW in the Reason Rack plugin. I'd love to hear about all that stuff. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about it with our guest. But first, I'm just going to do a little check-in here. First, blatant joy promotion. 13 is amazing, says RoboTube. Cool. David Henerato. David is coming to us from the Philippines, right? Oh, gosh, I hope it is. Yes, Philippines. Sorry, David. My brain kind of joins Indonesia and the Philippines into like one mental space. So I often mix up Manila and Jakarta, which I'm sure is a faux pas that I should not do, but I always have to double check before I say it. So Terry Laline, Reason 13 is great. Okay. Love the split screen on the sequencer. We'll talk about that sort of stuff. Because actually one thing I want to talk to Matias about is those who love that and those that love the old way, and ways that you can preserve the old way if you like the old way, or the lean into the new way if you don't. So Brent saying he's loving it so far. Great. And Matthew, thank you, Matthew. Matthew says, thanks for doing the use videos. Really helped me with Ripley. That's great to know. We put out those videos and we put a lot into those videos. When those are made, it's a lot of writing, it's a lot of production, it's a lot of on my end understanding these things so that I can then explain them, which means Matias gets pestered and Ludwig also gets pestered with a lot of questions when they're focusing on the last days of release and getting all the bugs squished in the beta testing and getting themselves ready. At the same time, they've got me off to the side going, wait, what about this? And how does this work? And am I saying this right? And is that correct? And wait, maybe this is a bug. And, I'm just throwing stuff at them constantly. And so it really is a team effort to get that stuff ready. And shout out to Ludwig and Matias and all the guys who helped me in those sort of final throws when those videos are coming together. But I'm glad to know they're useful to you guys, because that's what we want. We want people to hit the ground running when they get Reason 13 and be able to, take in a, whatever it is, 18, 20 minute sort of Ripley video, and then kind of get the sense of how Ripley works. And there's always more depth. I mean, you don't need 20 minutes to understand Ripley. You need, I'm going to be understanding Ripley for the next year or more, really. There's things about the Echo that I'm still going, that's cool. I haven't tried that before. So Ripley for sure is going to be a long-term exploration for me, but we wanted to kind of get you guys from 0 to 80%, and then the last 20% is for you to just have fun with and explore on your own. Because, like I say in the video, there's stuff we didn't even get into, the little mod matrix and the button and the switch and the all that sort of stuff. So, Ryan, turn off your phone. So anyway, let's bring Matias in here and talk to him, because it would not be one of these Reason live streams without bringing in the Bert to my Ernie. It's Matias.
Who's Bert? I'm Bert. I accept being Bert.
I think you are Bert, actually. Yeah, I think you are Bert. Now, Matias, I don't know.
Eyebrows, but...
How are you doing? Oh, yeah, one of us. That's true. But something about you seems more Bert. I don't know. But wait.
I'll take it as a compliment.
But the way you just laughed was a super Ernie laugh. He has us laughing. Goes. So
see, tricky. We have to share.
We have to share. Okay, right. We're Bernie. Ert. No, I don't know.
Ert.
So, how you doing, Matias? Welcome to the live stream.
Thank you. I'm doing moderately okay, because I got the flu literally the day of the release. Guess all that, stressing it out finally caught up with me. I think folks, I'm going to give you your own little shout out here, but I think folks in the chat, throw Matias some love, because he is, the man has the flu right now, and he is still coming on the live stream here to hang out with you guys, and he's rallying. What is your is it Lemsip? That's the thing that you sort of... Yeah. This stream is sponsored by the British cough medicine Lemsip that I have my neighbor import. It's the only thing that works for getting me like an hour of being sane and awake.
Well, if we have an hour with you, Matias, we are going to use that hour to its fullest. So, here's where people are chiming in. I'm thinking Ryan is more Ernie, so that makes
me Bert by default.
Bert by default. Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting way to get defaulted to Bert. That's true. False Mirror says it was nice to see both of you in person at Super Booth. It was super fun seeing everybody. I think I speak for both of us on that one. In fact, Matias, do you know? So folks who are frequent viewers of the Reason livestream may be familiar with a cameo appearance known as #YellowMug. Are you? Shout out, give some love to Yellow Mug if you know this in the stream. It's Yellow Mug is just a mug that I tend to drink from. It happens to be yellow, and there have been times in life where I've taken a sip on a live stream from this green mug, and the comment section revolts, like with this, you're not my real dad sort of revolt. And and I know I just held up green mug today, which is like the Darth Vader of mugs in this house. But the reason I bring up Yellow Mug today is because while we were at Super Booth, Matias and I were both visited by the Reason Studios Germany user group. It's like a group of German Reason users, and they brought us something that I'm actually rocking on this stream. A new mug. Yeah. Look at this, guys. Wait, is it going to zoom in? Yeah, there we go. All right, focus. So look at this. The folks over in Germany, big shout out to the whole user group. But they got us these mugs. RSG, Reason Studios Germany, I assume that's what that means. And then I'm not even going to try and say, no, I will try and say it for the comedy effect.
Try and say it, yeah.
Okay. Aaron Midglied. How's that? Am I doing better if I roll my R's? Probably not. I believe that translates into something to the effect of like honorary member, is what they said. So, guys, Reason Studios Germany, thank you guys for that mug. You're gonna see me drinking this the whole time.
I have mine at the office.
The office. I should have told us to coordinate.
You should have an office, Ryan. You should try that. It's pretty cool.
What's that like? Does your office have a bed? Where is it? There. Do you have a queen size bed in your office, Matias? I do not believe you do.
We don't, and we have no bikes on the wall.
No bikes on the wall. That's right, and no banjos. I have to say, I was just there. There were no banjos in that one. So, anyway, well, wait, blasphemy. I wonder if that's blasphemy because of no Yellow Mug. I'm not sure. Honorary member. I think they're confirming. Look at this. Good pronunciation. Look at that. I'm practically...
You're going to live on that for several weeks now.
I know. I'll have to tell you. Aaron Mitglied. Do you roll the R? No, guys. Do you roll the R, or do you do one of those other things that European accents do where you're like, Is it or is it neither? You let me know.
That's what I never figured out about German either.
I can't. Yeah, I'm not good at the German. But let's dive in a little bit here to things other than mugs, because I know while mugs may be the most exciting thing to talk about, #sarcasm. We're here because Reason 13 came out yesterday, and so first of all,
Yes, sir.
allow me to be the first to congratulate you on a release, because this is you made it to the finish line, Matias.
Well, congratulations right back, Ryan. You did well. No, it's been really fun. Release time is always really fun and also very intense.
Yeah, and I imagine for you, it's I say the finish line, and it's like you're probably thinking like, what finish line? Because you get to the release, and it's like it's almost like a lap timer where it's like, okay, now we're going for the next sprint, right? Is that's sort of how you don't get to rest on your laurels.
That lap timer starts, before we release. It's not like we only plan until the next release, right? We always have ideas cooking and stuff that needs to get started and so on. But it is always really fun to see, our team worked extremely hard on Reason 13 and seeing that get out, and getting all the feedback, both, really positive and constructive, and also just hearing some music. I, check all the social medias and so on, and already I've seen some people just posting songs they made, and that means they must have made those songs in less than 24 hours, which is impressive enough.
Right. Yeah, this is the part I get most excited about. I have, I guess we'll call it the luxury of being not boots on the ground in terms of the development process that you're in. So like you're saying, you guys have these longer term development cycles, and you're already working on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing while this is happening. What I get to sort of enjoy in this little window here where I'm like, I've got my content out. We've got this live stream here. I've kind of got this week here where I can both be sort of like getting myself ready for my next content plans, but also I get to like watch the Reason community dive into Reason 13 and see the new stuff they're putting out. And it is really fun to watch. I was watching, for example, Chris Reed, who we all know, a friend of the channel, a friend on the channel, and has his own channel as well, Chris Reed Beats. And I was looking at some of his, he did like I think it was a live stream. It was like an hour and change live stream where he was.
He did like a track from scratch, right?
Yeah. He was just poking around doing a track and stuff. And, that's to me, that's the really fun stuff. To watch people, outside of our like little family of Reason Studios itself, get this stuff and start using it. And that's when you sort of realize that the thinking that went into it that you guys did is connecting with people and clicking with people and working for them. And that's really always very fun for me. So
yeah, for sure.
Which I'd like to ask you, as I often do on these things, what was as you approach a new version, you always have the challenge with these with Reason versions, and maybe it's even different now in a world where there's Reason Plus and some things are happening throughout the year, and then some things are happening in integer releases. You probably have to come up with a set of thinking for like, what is the philosophy for this release? What is the
right.
What are we doing with this release versus what are we just doing in general?
Yeah, I think that's always interesting, right? I quite like when so an upgrade in particular, like a new big number, it needs to kind of fulfill a couple of criteria, I think, to be worthy of its name, right? It needs to add a lot of different things. And generally, I think it's nice if it has a theme, like this is the upgrade that focuses on this, because that also helps us a lot, right? When designing and figuring out which devices go in the next version or whatever it might be, having a theme that kind of resonates with what people are asking for or what might be interesting, it makes it much easier. And you can see that too, like when you saw the first Reason 13 videos, we talked about faster workflow, and that was the entire theme for the release, right? We wanted to make sure that, if we did a device, it was a device that would get you to a certain point faster. And that point could be a very simple thing, right? I just, want it to be stereo faster. Or it could be more complex, like I want to be able to make really complex ambient sounds faster. So they all kind of fit the same theme, right? And the same with the with the whole redesign of the sequencer interface and the browser, all of those was like getting to something faster. So the browser in particular, we have been kind of thinking about that and working at like, how do we present all the content in a way that you get to new stuff a lot faster.
Right.
Kind of almost one of the first things we thought about, because there's so many sounds in Reason. There's so many sounds, and we're all used to it. People have used Reason for years and years and years, right? You know that like in this subfolder, in this folder, in the factory sound pack, there's that sound, right?
Right.
But you always forget that, and sometimes you're too lazy to even go there. So kind of lifting that to the top.
One of my favorite moments while I was working on the videos for, I think it was the browser video, the sort of new workflow and all that stuff. I sent you a message, and I said, "Is this new?" I can't remember what it was that I was asking about. But I said, "Is this a new feature?" Patch, right? Was it?
Oh no, maybe it was yeah.
It wasn't a patch. Feature, yeah. It was a feature, like a little one of those transform functions. And I said, "Is that new or has that always been there?" And your response was, "It's always been there. And thank you for validating why we are bringing this stuff up to the forefront." Because
if even you didn't know it was there, then that's definitely a problem.
I mean, I'll admit it. I'm not like the tool window was probably one of the most underused parts of Reason for me. I tended to find ways to work around it and quick keys that probably did what was in the tool windows, but I didn't use the tool. It reminds me, my mom used to complain about my grandmother's driving. And the way that she would complain is she always said, when you sell this car, you're going to say turn signals like new in the listing or something like that. Cause she didn't use her turn signals. It was like her big, bazinga, right. Mom got a digging on grandma. But I feel like if I ever sold Reason, I'd have to list it as like tool window, like new, it's like I rarely loaded that tool window. And there's good stuff in there. But for me, that little and we all have those sort of barriers that are superficially unimportant, but practically important in that.
Yeah, and there are so many of those too, right? Like we can do this update and we think we've removed tons of barriers. And then, there's one or two barriers that we might have introduced, that were like, oh, damn it, I didn't think this was that big of a barrier, right? So it's right. A constant battle to kind of remove those and make sure you can focus on the music making. And it's the same, like I'm a big video game player, and the big problem with me not playing all the video games I have is like, because I have to kind of get up and turn on the machine. So when, it became wireless and you just push the controller, it's like I started playing more video games. It's the silliest thing, right? It was literally 2 steps from the couch to the thing. But now it's like, no, I can still be on the couch.
Totally. I was just this week prior to release, I spent part of that week at a music festival. I'll say it was a banjo bluegrass festival. It's the coolest festival, the one that all the cool kids were at. But weirdly enough, I was, because of the way that I'm not the only person that sort of like lives in these two worlds of acoustic music and electronic music, I end up having a lot of conversations with people there who are who are music producers, and some who even know me and us through the channel and stuff. And so they'd see me and they go, "Hey, wait, the Reason guy." Like it's fun to get recognized totally out of context at a bluegrass festival. Yeah. But we'd have these conversations about music production, and they produce music and they work on music and compose music or whatever. And they would ask me, "So are you in Reason full time? Like, is that your main DAW?" And I go, yeah, no, that's my main one. And they go, "Oh, okay. Well, and what is it about it that you, why?" was kind of their question. Maybe they were a Logic user, and it wasn't a DAW war conversation. It wasn't an accusatory why. It was like a genuine, clue me into what's working for you about that. And I always talk about the efficiency with which I make music, that for whatever reason, or the sum total of all the little things, I tend to create more efficiently and faster in Reason, and that's how I ended up in Reason in the first place. And so what's interesting to me is that when you guys came at this and you had this idea of working faster, you already had a system that for a lot of people was working faster than the other things they've tried. So it wasn't like it wasn't a matter of like, oh, we really got to fix all these crazy inefficiencies.
It's so slow now. Yeah.
And yet you still identified key, I guess, key things where you could do that. I'm curious, what was that process of identifying the growth opportunities in terms of efficiency?
Right. I think like any company that's a product company, right? They will always have a giant backlog of stuff, stuff they suddenly come up with in meetings, or when they use the program, or heard from people out on the internet, or talk to someone, that always grows up. And that's the same with us. And it's a lot about finding those things that make sense together, and finding the right time to do them, and what can we achieve now. Like, we're not the largest company in the world, so we need to like pick what makes sense now, like what would make a big improvement. And we also spend a lot of time thinking like, what's a good base to build on, right? So the browser is a typical example, right? The browser, the first thing we identified as a big problem that we saw from a lot of users is like, there's so much content in Reason, and it's all spread out because it's been added during all these years in different, optional refills, and deep in the factory soundbank, and inside a rack extension. So the primary first thing was like, how can we make this all easily accessible? And then you run into things like, oh, well, that can be quite hard to do in the kind of limited space we have in the side panel browser that's also supposed to do a bunch of other things, right? And then we go, okay, what can we do instead? And the important thing there is not saying what solves this immediate problem, but also what sets us up for doing more stuff here, right? Half a year from now, or 3 years from now, does this enable us to add even more cool features or cool stuff? Exciting things we haven't thought about yet, or top requests.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really key thing. Like, it's not just doing the thing exactly as it says on the tin. It's thinking about, how do we do this in a way that's both good, but also even better in the future, right? Otherwise you end up with stuff that you have to kind of can and redo, which we've done a bunch of times because Reason's been around for a long time,
Right.
So now we're extra careful about, like, when we make one of those decisions, it should kind of keep up.
Right. Okay, now look, I'm hijacking the stream because people are making banjo comments. I'm going to subject you to banjo comments. Luke says, I make house music, but my DD, don't know what that is, bought me a banjo. I have to figure out how to play. My dad.
It's
my
dad.
dad. Oh, Father's Day. We had Father's Day in the U.S., so here, we'll make it a Father's Day comment. My dad bought me a banjo. I have to figure out how to play this thing and find a way to incorporate it into a dope house tune. Let me tell you something, Luke. I did incorporate it. Well, dope is subjective, but I did when we did the Tob Talk remix challenge, that everybody was taking the song called New Levels by Tob Talk and making remixes of them. I made a banjo remix of it, and for about a brief hot minute, I was like, I think banjo and house really goes well together. That may wear thin really quickly.
Said you only.
Said only me. That's right. But I see. Yeah, there you go. He says dad. I'm
gonna also just briefly interrupt your banjo stuff and say, while we're talking about the background to Reason 13,
please do.
Please post your questions here in the comments. We're both reading them, and we're kind of having this live stream to actually talk about Reason 13, and what better way to do that than answering questions you might have. So I've written 100%. Down some already.
Oh, good. Yeah, I've been flagging a couple as they've been coming in, but Matias is 100% right. Send in your questions, because largely what we're going to be doing today, partially out of humanity, because to let Matias crawl back into bed and have his flu once the Lemsip starts wearing off. I don't want to be around. It's like when it's like a reverse Hulk, isn't it? Or no, is it? Anyway, I don't know what that means. My point is, we're going to let Matias get into bed sooner rather than later, but we'd love to kind of field people's questions, talk about things, maybe show a couple of things too, but definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you ask a question that demands some showing, then we'll do some showing.
Yeah. There was a question now, gosh, will I find it? Let me see here, that I was going to throw up on screen. Oh, here, I'll just throw this one up while I'm at it. I know the sequencer edit improvements have massively sped up my workflow. Drag to zoom alone is a massive plus. That is true.
That's not a question, Ryan.
That was not a question, but I saw it. I just thought I'd... and here, this isn't a question either. Thank you for answering my question. I don't know which one we answered, but I'll throw that up on screen. I can't find the thing. Somebody was asking about an audio-related workflow, and they said something about a marquee tool. I don't know what they meant by that. I was going to ask them to expand on that. They were, asking. It was sort of, I guess it was a feature suggestion of sorts, but it wasn't something I was familiar with the term. I know the marquee tool in Photoshop, but I don't know it in a DAW context. So anyway, questions about this. Can I fine tune vocal clips, Matias? That is a question that maybe is a, if I adapt that, it's going to be a where did the fine tune go for vocal clips?
Maybe so. We can check that out briefly. I have a track open with some vocals here.
Pop you up here on the screen.
Now I am on the screen. So here's a little demo song that I recorded, basically remixed with Chris, who works in marketing, who was writing a song and singing. And I added a bunch of, krautrock drums and synths and guitars. But the main hook is kind of this vocal.
Broken bones and feet are burning. I've been missing autumn sleep just to find.
So,
by the way, note to Christopher, he's going to be getting hit up by me to do some vocals. I didn't know that Christopher has such a good voice. I had no idea. Right? We have all these musicians at Reason Studios that, sort of are hiding in plain sight. And I feel like it needs to be part of the hiring process that they have. It's not an audition to get hired. It's just that I want for my own files to hear everybody's talents so I know what I have to work with when I'm going to collaborate. And the same thing happened with when Maya and Lisa and I did that music, and it was like, wait, you guys are killer producers.
Yeah. So the question was, can you fine tune vocals? So for any audio clip, you have the transpose here always. Which includes sense, which would be the same as fine tune, right? If you're just
I'm in your way. I'm in your way. Hang on, wait. I put my face in your way.
Oh, you put your face here.
I put both our faces. Okay, it's all good now.
Yeah. So here in the edit area to the left hand side, you have transpose for any given audio clip, and you can transpose here in sense, which is more fine tune. But of course, if you want to fine tune every single note, then the vocal edit is where you do that, right? And here, as soon as you select a note, you see all the information for it, including fine-tune, drift, preserve, transition, all these vocal edit tools right here. So if you want to fine-tune one note, you can do that here. Or you can just drag it up and down, or hold shift and then drag it up and down. Or if you want to fine-tune an entire clip, then you can do that in this overview edit. You always have transpose ready here.
Oh, I see. Right. So for fractional transposing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hope that answers the question.
Hope that does answer the question. Absolutely. And so that we've sort of dived into some of these little sidebar workflow things within the Reason DAW. I think it's safe to say that is one of the biggest changes, as it were, is that things that used to live in different places on the screen have kind of all now gravitated towards that left sidebar. Within the sort of, what is the terminology the edit area?
Yeah, so this entire area here, if I where I see the audio clip now, or where I see these drums now, that's called the edit area, and this is the edit area inspector. And the reason why it's called inspector is because that's the basis of what it does, right? If I select something, it inspects what's the position of this note, what's the length, what's the note value, what's the velocity, and then underneath those there are a bunch of functions. They can maybe be called transform functions or something, but various features to kind of work with note. Here you have transpose, octave, alter, and so on. Right. And I'm sure there's maybe a more correct terminology in the manual that I can't remember right now.
Well, if you can't, I can't. So is there in your experience, both through the beta testing, through the even earlier than that, and the sort of the user testing that you do as you develop this stuff, is there for someone who's used to the previous workflow, is there a tip you can give people in terms of or something you see them run up against in the steepest part of the learning curve that you could help?
I think so. Really, it depends on how you like to work. So I'm a kind of one area at a time guy most of the time. So I look at the sequencer, or I look at the rack, or I look at the mixer. Right. So for me, the split view here in the sequencer is really good. But if I want to look at the rack and the sequencer, I tend to maximize the edit area.
Yep.
And this means it kind of works like before with a few differences. So if I double click a clip, it opens full screen, and I can work with this clip. If I want to go out, I can either click the little button here, or I can hit escape. And there's a bunch of ways to do this, which is kind of good to know. So you can use F8 to open and close the edit area. You can use Shift Tab to open and close the edit area. You can double click, and double clicking also zooms to fit here. But you can also single click if you see both. And you can also hit enter. So there's a bunch of ways to get in there. But then it kind of works more similar to Reason 12, right? You just double click a clip and that edit view takes over the entire screen, right? You see the rest of the track. Then you go back. But I really do think you might not be used to it if you've used Reason for a long time, but there are some real advantages to this view too. Just being able to navigate quickly and see exactly the thing you're clicking on, right? And being able to have this zoomed in view. And what I really like too is that if you have this split view and you zoom in, a lot, or you zoom out a lot because you want to see kind of this level of zoom, then clicking the next clip always keeps that level of zoom. It just scrolls in the clip, right? So it's quite hard to get lost. And then if you want to look at something taking up the entire screen, you can always just double click.
Right. Okay. Let me see here. I'm looking at a couple of questions here.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions really early that I think was interesting, so I wrote.
Oh, good.
Down.
Okay, I'm flagging my own. But first, Mark says very cherry picking questions they address. Mark, we've only begun the question process, so I ain't afraid of no man. Throw your questions in here. Let's see what you want to ask. We're not cherry picking. We are.
I can answer one that I see right away. Someone was really scared of saying, "Has blocks disappeared?"
Yes. I flagged that one. They said, "Why did?" Or someone else asked that.
Disappeared. I just don't have
why
it
blocks section was sent to Abyss, and it wasn't sent to Abyss.
Blocks can be turned off and on.
Right.
So you have enable blocks, and I haven't enabled blocks in this song, so that's the only reason. I can enable blocks, and here they are.
It's not quite the Abyss. It's
not quite the Abyss.
Not quite the Abyss. What was a less Abyss? A shallow Abyss? No, that doesn't. That's a contradiction. No, it was. I think blocks was something that you guys at some point made the decision that like it's still there, but in the default interaction, rather than have it be presented to you by default, it's something that you can turn on if it's a workflow that you like and you want to use. Which is just a flip of the default behavior, really. It's nothing about it actually went anywhere. It's just that some people get into working directly in the Reason sequencer and they just stay in this linear mode. And for those people, they don't need to have blocks as an extra lane in their sequencer and an extra thing that's kind of being presented to them. And they hit the B key. Now they're in a different mode suddenly. And so that I think that's the thinking of I'm speaking on behalf of you guys, but I don't think I'm wrong in saying that. So.
Another question that was quite early that I thought was interesting when I was talking about the development process. Someone said they were also in software development and they were interesting, like how far in advance is a release planned, and are you kind of taking time to experiment before that, or is it like 3 releases planned?
Right.
And I think the short answer is it varies a lot. Generally, we plan out releases in pretty good time because the development kind of time for this kind of software is very long.
Right.
But we also plan them for a very long time because we want to experiment. So the first part of any development process is like we're doing prototyping and user research and kind of trying some concept on either a few users or just internally mocking something up, for example.
Right.
So as an example, when we did Reason Rack plugin, 2 developers locked themselves in one of our meeting rooms for a week just to see if they could hack in the rack in a VST wrapper, just to kind of see if it would work, if it would be interesting.
Right.
And then we had a lot to evaluate based on that, right? And then the development process for that version was quite long.
Right.
So
Chuck says,
the answer is that.
I'm going to throw this one up. Chuck says, can you please give an in-depth overview of the improved browser functionality? And Chuck, what I would tell you is we made a 24-minute video for you. We have a whole in-depth overview of the browser functionality and the DAW workflow functionality feature changes, which is actually more in-depth than Matias and I could do in a live stream right now. So it's actually the best place for you to go to look on our channel and see there's a new browser video that walks through the way it works, and it gives you it's in depth. I think I hit, a lot of times when I make those, I have to at some point hit a point where it's like, okay, well, I can't go through everything. But with the browser, I think I hit all the stuff. I hope I did. It's definitely in depth. So check that out on our site.
A couple of questions about favorites for devices too.
Yes,
I
yes.
think there was just one I see right now, but I wrote that down. So that's definitely something we gotten quite a bit of feedback on after release. That you had all these favorite lists where you had filled them with VST devices or rec devices, for example.
Right.
And to be honest, we really underestimated how many people were using that actively. When we did our user research, that was almost never used, and we didn't see a lot of people, using that for organization to a very big extent. The normal case was, I put my compressors in the compressor thing. And that's what we try to solve with categories too.
Right.
But based on this feedback, that's actually something we're working on making a solution for, so that you can kind of categorize your VSTs and rack devices on your own and kind of in your own way. Be that assigning a category to it or assigning something else to it, right? So you can easily filter down on a specific thing. So hopefully that's something that people are happy to hear, and definitely something we look forward to kind of figuring out what the coolest, best way to do it is too.
Right. A couple of things I'm going to throw up here. Steve Oldfield points out that in-depth and overview are contradictory terms, so I can't say that I made an in-depth overview of the browser. Fair enough, Steve. There's some discussion about the browser window living within the four corners of the Reason window. That is, I'll throw this one up here. My own critique of the browser is connected to the main window of Reason. You can't move it from the window. It should come detached with the option to connect it if you choose to. You can probably explain the thinking of that. There may be technical reasons, but it also has something to do with the idea of the way that it, well, maybe this is the technical as well, the way that you drag and drop from the browser into the window, and that it's sort of, that browser is contextually relevant to that document. It's in a world where those start separating, I would think that it becomes weird if you have multiple Reason documents open and one browser open. Which browser does that relate to in that Reason document, and does it have to try and address both or neither or one or the other? And is there
right, I think there were a couple of reasons. I mean, there's definitely a technical aspect to it. It is I can't speak for the developers really, because I'm not a developer, but for technical reasons it was both easier and safer to do it that way. It actually saves a lot of headaches. But it's also been designed, the entire browser has been designed to kind of show up when you need it. It's kind of designed as like, okay, I'm thinking of adding an instrument. I'm thinking of getting some samples into this drum machine or whatever, right? And we actually saw a problem too with the browser being always open before, because it kind of always switched views in the old browser when you started browsing something else, and you might lose your way and you need to navigate back to devices. So there was a design thinking behind it. And I think the one thing that is really important to kind of highlight is that there are some ways that I think using the browser makes it even better. So if we can take a look at Reason for a second.
I'll go back for you. Doink.
Thank you. So one of the ways that I think it really kind of helps thinking is, if I want to create instruments, I can do that here and I can drag in an instrument. But many times you're not quite sure what instrument you want, right? And we have these, both the create menu, add instrument, add effect. You have that if you right click, add instrument, add effects, and you also have Command I, Command E. And this always opens the browser and sets it to the context you're looking for, right? I want to add instrument, so it's now browsing instrument patches. It gives you immediate access to, right now, literally all instruments patches that Reason knows about, right? So if I want synth, I click synth and I can try this one. And the key thing here is that it loads up in the background and it has you focused on that. And when you find something that you really want, it's old school, I like it. I take this. Then it hits OK and it's kind of good. I found the thing. But we also wanted to make it flexible enough that you could, go, actually, I just want to try sounds now. I don't want to see this entire song. I want to go, let's go nuts. I want to have a really big screen, or I want to just see the smallest kind of possible thing. I want to remove the categories and tags and just kind of look at this. So we wanted to make it flexible that way. And this type of window is really good for that. But the kind of base design is this: adding something, Command E, it gets you to the point where we can show you everything at once. And that was really good with this window that kind of appeared, right? If it just if you had a window open, it just switched views all the time. It wouldn't be as obvious as you're going like, this is what I'm trying to add. Oh, there it is, right?
Right.
So that's part of the design thinking.
Yeah. Okay. There were some questions about. I saw the edit area compared to the old full size piano roll and popping things out to multiple windows and stuff like that. Is there any tips you can give people about maybe if they're used to or wanting to preserve some form of Reason 12 and earlier workflow?
In terms of the edit area?
Yeah. I mean, I guess partially it's, I think from what I was seeing, and there were some people talking about it, wanting it to be full screen and stuff like that. That's just a,
that's basically what I shown, right?
That's
soon
just
as you make it full screen.
And that will now stay there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It remembers the size.
Okay. Cool.
Let's see. I saw another question that I thought was really fun. Someone asked, what's your favorite synth in Reason that is kind of like Nord lead, which I thought was a very specific question, but also fun because as many of you might know, Pelle, who co-founded the company and does all the DSP, he also did the DSP for Nord lead.
Yep.
So it kind of makes sense to ask this question in a Reason stream. And actually part of the inspiration for Polytone, especially the morphing feature, is the Nord lead.
Right.
Like that's something that existed in the Nord lead and that we hadn't done and that we kind of remembered fondly.
Right.
So Polytone in many ways actually kind of does a bit of that. Even in its general layout and kind of the features that are in there can be quite Nord leady, very like one knob per function.
I have to say, I mean, I'm such a fan of Subtractor in my, like, there's the music I make when I'm making content with Reason, where I'm all over the map. I really try and like actually push myself to diversify the things I use when I'm making videos, because I kind of want to, show and represent Reason in its full panoply of options. But when I'm making music on my own, let me tell you, there's a lot of Subtractor in there. And there's something about it that I just really like, the very tactile, straight up interface. And so Polytone for me, when that came out, it really did harken back to, and I think of Subtractor as the transitional early move from Pele, from Nord over to, I mean, I know there's a few years there's Recycle and Rebirth.
Yeah, of course, but I get what you mean.
Yeah, it's sort of, that's his, his wheelhouse from the Nord era coming into Reason when Reason 1.0 was coming out. And here we are 23 years later. And I see that same sort of, affinity for that type of tactile, straight ahead workflow in a synth. And I just love it. I love it.
It's also really fun, I think, because it wasn't that many years ago when it was kind of unimaginable that, the Nord lead would be a synth that people were still buying. And I think it's a testament to good design, that it's not even just nostalgia. It's just like, here's something that was good for its time and is still good.
Right.
And I think that's also kind of why we don't, remove Subtractor. Right. Everything has its place and character, which I think is nice. There was one question that I wanted to get really quick. Someone asked, can you still detach the areas and windows? Because there's no longer any kind of detach buttons on the dividers. You absolutely can. You can do that from the window menu, where it says detach main mixer, detach rack window. You can also hold command on a Mac and push F6, for example, to detach the rack window. Also, on these buttons that you can navigate with, if you just hover, you can actually command click here. So hold command or control and click that, and you detach the rack. So it can still be just a click away. You just require a modifier to do it.
I see. Yeah, that's because there used to be a little, I don't know what you call it, like a little arrow kind of icon.
Yeah, exactly.
Pop it out.
And then someone else was asking about will there ever be custom tags in the browser?
Yep.
And that's actually something we had planned, and we actually have quite a lot of ideas about, but we didn't really make it in time for the release. But that's something we want to add in a future update, and I think that's really going to make a big difference too. I mean, there's a certain breed of people, and I'm one of those that really likes categorizing your own stuff in all kinds of way.
Yeah.
And the first step was just getting all the content tagged and having good tags and categories there, and let you tag the content with those.
Right.
But the next step definitely includes some kind of custom tagging.
I'm going to throw up a couple things here. One, Boris, thanks you for giving that tip on how to detach. Zynet throws out a feature request. They said, can you incorporate a detached piano roll to that list of detach options? I think they basically want a fourth, rather than it being the piano rolls inside the sequencer and you detach the sequencer, but rather you detach the piano roll. And I believe, if I saw it up in the comments, that is, I think, people expecting a similar thing to maybe what they're used to in FL Studio, which presumably does that as well. That's not something
that's interesting feedback. I mean, we actually on purpose made it part of the arrange view because there is such an intrinsic link between your selection in arrange and the piano roll, as it were.
Yeah.
Like you see the content of a clip you're clicking up here, right? And you actually have that context that if I click the next clip, I see that. And the top area shows you like, where am I? And the bottom area shows you, well, here, right?
Yeah.
So we definitely hadn't thought about detaching this before. So that was interesting to hear. That's interesting feedback. Who knows? But
Alfred
it's designed to be, here. Basically.
Right.
Kind of keep your song on the radar, editing stuff you need to edit while not getting lost. That's the design thinking.
Alfred asks, since he asked by name, I'm going to throw him up here. Hey, Ryan, I'm about to upgrade next. I just wanted to know if there's any update or upgrade on the players. No update or upgrade on players as it relates to Reason 13. Really nothing more to add other than, if you're upgrading, if anyone's upgrading from sort of say Reason 12 just on a perpetual license and you're jumping into Reason 13 via Reason Plus, in that sense, there's going to be a whole bunch of players that are coming in as part of your experience of Reason Plus that you may not have had. But no big updates to the players on this one.
Correct. There was another question that flew by, which I think is important to answer. Someone said, I keep my refills and samples in a Dropbox folder, and that folder does not expand correctly in the browser. Is this a known bug? And the very horrible answer is yes, it is a known bug. So there is actually a workaround, but by default, Reason removes any kind of cloud drive like OneDrive or Dropbox from the index. There's actually a part in the preferences about that. So you can go into preferences and click folders. And you can see, do not index these folders. That's the basic things that we don't index.
Right.
And the reason for that is that if you have stuff that isn't synced offline, indexing actually means checking out every file. So it would mean if you have like a terabyte of cloud storage and put your entire Dropbox folder in the index, then it would try to download the entire terabyte of cloud storage, which is not ideal. But you can get around this by simply instead of adding the whole Dropbox folder there, you can just add the folders you don't want to index, and the stuff you have patches in, you can actually leave them out of there, and then you can open them and navigate to them in the index.
Right.
Additionally, it's good to know just in terms of how the browser works. So all locations is basically everything included in the index, and that is everything here, anything you put in shortcuts or anything you put in favorite lists. The computer isn't included in the index until you drag a folder to shortcuts. Okay. So I could go out here and navigate up to, my Dropbox and look into all these folders here. That still works. It's just when they're in the index, when they're a shortcut, they work a little bit differently because they're excluded. So I hope that clarifies it. And we're looking at kind of how to best tell you that and sort that out properly for you. But right now it's a little bit of a bug.
I see. Regmon Music says, the reason synthesizers are so good, it'd be great to have hardware versions. This is just me as a fanboy, but I'm throwing it up because I agree. Ever since Reason 1.0, it's like, I want to touch the knobs. I want to play with it and stuff. But obviously, Regman, that is an entirely different business, an entirely different sort of project. But dare to dream. Maybe someday. I don't know.
Someone asks or says they don't think we read the questions in the Twitch chat. Don't worry, they also come into our
They come
magical
in.
every comment
There you
chat.
go. And thus, by answering, you have proven.
Exactly.
So yes, we are reading those. A question here's a little handy, just housekeeping one. After installing Reason 13, is it safe to delete Reason 12?
Yep, absolutely.
Great. Worth maybe mentioning, some people have asked the opposite about that, of installing Reason 12 and 13 living on the same machine. I do believe right now there's something that
yes, you're completely right. There is a very awkward bug that we're fixing as soon as we possibly can. That means that once you've installed Reason 13, you can't open Reason 12 until you reinstall Reason 12, and vice versa. That's not supposed to be the case. We're fixing that as soon as we can. But until then, if you want to jump between versions, you have to do a reinstall.
Right. Okay. Cool. Let's see. I'm looking through. I've got a couple. Let me jump over to I've flagged a couple of questions here. Well, here, while I'm searching, Matias, talk about yourself. I'm a video game music composer, and I use Reason almost exclusively. What games do you enjoy, my friend?
Me too. I mean, if for people who don't know, that's before I actually started at then Propellerhead, probably 13 or 14 years ago. I was also a video game composer using exclusively Reason. That's an extra fun question. I play a lot of Japanese shoot 'em ups and role playing games. I have a fondness for that kind of traditional JRPG or bullet hell shooter because I think they're really fun. I also play a lot of virtual pinball and an amount I'm not comfortable to say of the online Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, perfect. Next one, Matias, water your damn plant. Audio Muscle says.
See, this is because my girlfriend is currently out in the cabin with her parents, and I have completely forgotten to water the plants.
Okay. Now back on track. Oh wait, let me see here. There was a question. Oh yeah.
Oh, so,
I thought this was a good one.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to use the new stereo tool, but I was just wondering what the difference is between it and the width knob in the mixer.
Yeah. So the width knob is that's using very let's call it basic TSP. It's basically kind of looking at the differences between the channels and kind of removing that.
Actually,
stereo
Matias,
tool.
might I correct you here? I think if they say the width knob in the mixer, they're talking about what is a passive control.
Oh, the one that just goes to. Oh, sorry, the mixer.
I thought the mixer,
in the stereo widener.
Yeah.
The difference in the mixer is it just like either it's the stereo that comes in. Or it kind of sums it down to mono.
It's less. It's all the stereo that's available or less.
Yeah, exactly. Stereo tool is the opposite. It's what comes in or more, more stereo. I mean, you can make it less too, but it's about actually adding more stereo width than that's actually there in the signal. And it's doing that with completely different tech. It's using, I believe it's comb filters that splits up the frequency in a bunch of frequency band and pans them differently. And that also means that if you would listen to that stereo signal on a mono speaker, it would still sound good. So it's quite different. And there was someone who asked about that stereo tool technology, if it was similar to a plugin called Wider. I don't actually know if Wider is made the same way, but it wouldn't surprise me. It's a very smart and efficient way to do it.
Yeah, I talk about this in the video I made. I really had a moment with a stereo tool. It's funny, it was at Super Booth when I had my first wait a second, because I overheard you talking about its use on acoustic stuff, and I had really only been thinking about it as a synth widening tool. And when you talked about its use on audio, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to come to that, use case thought. I just hadn't yet thought of it that way. And so while you were still in the booth at Super Booth talking to people, I quickly pulled up, because I have a bunch of acoustic stuff. I pulled up some acoustic music, ran it through the widener, and I was like, oh, hang on a second. I think I have a new love. And I've just been using it like crazy now on everything.
Yeah.
It really has been quite wonderful. Wait, how did you make... Oh yeah. Here, so this kind of a follow up there. How did you make the widen function avoid phase issues? It's awesome. Asks audio.
Yeah, I complete credit to DSP Wizard Pelle.
Yeah,
I had very
right.
little to do with it.
This is one of those ones I love. Like the answer, I don't know, but it works. So
Yeah,
like
a smart person made it up.
on the music side of things, I don't know. But I've been I haven't made a huge deal out of this, but on live streams it has come up a few times. I'm anti Haas effect. I really have had a couple of rants about the Haas effect because it creates phase problems, and it gets taught in videos by people with no acknowledgement that it's actually a risky strategy at times to use. And people go out in the world using it thinking they found the holy grail of widening, and they haven't.
Right.
So I'm all like,
I felt that way for a long time. It made stuff wide.
yeah, right.
So
It makes it wide,
Tim
but it's like,
Spanner says the subtractor plus stereo code tool is cheat codes, and that's actually part of why we thought it was so good, is because it basically updates subtractor. It's like adding subtractor 2,
yeah,
making it stereo.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, Samovar says really quite impressed with the phase coherence of the new stereo tool. Yeah, I tell you, that stereo tool, it's the sleeper hit in Reason 13. I know that Reason, like Polytone is sexy and fun, and Ripley's super fun too. But like that stereo tool, I swear, like I want us to like, we're all going to be singing us praises for a long time, I swear. Matias, now I realize you're on death's door, so I don't want to like hold you up forever, but I want to make sure that I actually am exploring a little bit of some fun stuff on these devices too. Is there, with no agenda really whatsoever, I'm sort of wondering if there's like, I don't know, some. Hey, what do you do? You just cancel your screen. What are you doing?
Yep, because I'm opening.
Oh, because you got to open a thing.
That's what you're gonna ask me.
I see. I'm just kind of curious if you've got some stuff that you could maybe, I don't know, wow us. Here's my request as a talented host of many years. I'm gonna just go entertain us, Matias. Is there something you could show us from either Polytone or Ripley that maybe is I don't know, some kind of fun little trick that I don't cover in the video, so we're kind of going beyond.
Yeah, sure. I can show you some stuff. And while you do that, you can look for some more questions, because there was one comment that was they're definitely cherry picking questions, and we're not doing that on purpose.
Well, so here, let me throw up. Mark is talking about a Kong thing. I'm going to throw it up here, Mark. I don't know that I understand what you're experiencing, but that's fine. That's just me. Have you fixed the outputs on Kong? Mark has asked many times about Kong-related things. So it doesn't reset every time you drag a new sample to the pads. Does that mean something?
Is it the output assignment?
Maybe.
Yeah, that does mean something to me.
Okay.
Or at least I think I understand what you mean. So let's check this out. If I have a snare drum here and I send this output to 3 and 4, I think what he's saying is if I drag this weird sample here, it resets the output.
Resets there. I see.
Yeah. And that's because you're dragging it to the pad because it's a new drum patch, and the drum patch includes the drum output. So if you wanted to do that, I think, let's find out. Yeah, that should. If you drag it to the actual sampler, it doesn't reset the drum output because it's not loading a new drum patch. It's actually just adding the sample.
I see.
That's a workaround, but clearly, yes, we haven't changed how it works when you drag it to a pad.
Okay.
But as long as you drag it to the actual drum section, then it's fine. For example, with that trombone.
With that very
with that great
ironically
trombone.
sad trombone. Cool. Okay. Let's see. I'm looking through a couple of things, but here you can jump back to whatever you were going to do. I just wanted to
I just thought since Ripley is probably the most feature packed, and you even said on purpose.
Monkile says, "Did Matias make a Haas effect tutorial back in the day? Did you ever do one, Matias?"
Sure, I did.
I made it a point to never do one. I'm clean. My record is clean.
That's a you problem. But I think Ripley might be fun to show some stuff because Ripley's very, very feature packed, and I think there was a little bit of like we could only do so much in a video, so there's still some fun stuff here that you can kind of find. So one thing I really like to do with Ripley is that on this last page of the mod matrix, you actually have a button and a knob. And those are really fun to assign to stuff, so you can have macro controls. But there's also other buttons you can use. For example, in the envelope follower, you can take the freeze button or the macro button here as a source for the envelope follower. And what's really fun about that is that this is just an envelope follower, i.e. a rise time, how fast does it go up to the max value, and a fall time, or the value that comes in. How long does it take for it to go down? So the button goes from 0 to max. So when I click it, you see it rises up here, and when I depress it, it falls down. That means you can make your own kind of envelopes and use those to trigger stuff, which is really kind of fun. And you can also do that in freeze effects. I think it's great to kind of bring up reverb when you freeze. So here's a little patch. Just a default patch, and I have the reverb set as a serial effect.
Can I ask, by the way, much needed spice? Is that a patch you designed? That default patch? It's a very nice, really nice, just default.
It adds some much needed spice.
It really does add much needed spice. It's a really nice one. There's so many times I'll put it on and I put it on with the intent to change it, and then I go, oh no, okay, they're done.
Yeah, but what's really fun, I think, is then using this freeze button thing with the envelope follower and control one of the effects. So, for example, I want to turn up the space amount with this kind of rise fall time when I hit the freeze button. So I can, and it kind of swells in when I hit the freeze button, and then disappears when I declick it. So you can use that as kind of a performance effect.
Yeah. One of the things I really liked when I was watching Chris Reed, which I hadn't yet thought of, is he uses a remote override and he assigns the freeze button to a sustain pedal on his...
Yeah, it's super fun.
And then he's just got a wonderful little extra toggle there with his foot while he's playing, and makes for a really nice performance thing.
Yeah, I really like people can often forget an effect sometimes feels like something you just put on.
Yeah.
And you have your effect. But especially delays have traditionally been stuff you can also tweak, right? There's a whole... Ever heard of dub, right? That's just having stuff that you actually tweak live, right?
Right.
Bringing the feedback up and the filter down. And I think this is a really fun way to do that. So, you can add several things. You can kind of add a little bit of the digital too, so it gets hissy and weird. You can maybe also change the filter frequencies, kind of bring up the high cut, low cut. So now you can get this really kind of dynamic, really interesting thing that just makes it sound different. You can play with that. That's definitely one of the kind of hidden features of Ripley that I think is super fun. Another one of those is if you ever need to control something, from something else, you have the knob here, but you also actually have a constant if you just want to, change the value here because you're doing something else up here, which is very geeky. But if you've ever used a modular synth, you know how good it is to have an offset for something.
Right.
It's also good to know that there's quite a bit of CV on both Ripley and Polytone, and also this external feedback loop that I think is easy to forget. You kind of take it for granted in the echo, but in Ripley it adds a lot more because you have all these other effects afterwards. But here you actually have CV outputs for the envelope follower. So if I have that freeze thing I just did, for example, you can have that control, the filter on the Polytone, which is really fun to kind of synchronize these timed events across different things.
Speaking of, while we're just on the subject of the filter on Polytone, there was a question. Let me see if I can find it. Does Polytone use the same filter DSP as monotone, or is it a new filter topology?
Fair question. It does not. In fact, the naming might have been confusing. For us, we named it Polytone because it does the same thing as monotone did for bass, but for polysynths, right? It's a straightforward kind of instant results synth, not because they actually share a lot of DSP at all. Right. So the filters are brand new in Polytone, especially because they can be morphed, so they're actually really brand new.
I hadn't thought of that in a really reductive way of thinking that some people might take the naming similarity and go, oh, so they went into the code and they put, polyphonic equals true and then reskinned
it. No, it's not. That wouldn't be very fun, I think. I can show you one thing while I'm here at the back of the rack, actually. So the sidechain tool is really neat for getting pumping effects, right? You just add it on. That's just pumping. But it's also quite nice for CV output because it has several both inputs and outputs that are quite uncommon. So, for example, the CV output for the curve has several stages. So when the sidechain curve starts, the first point of it, the trig, when the hold part actually ends, when it's been at the bottom and starts going up again, and when the entire curve ends. That means you can do these weird rhythmical things. And I'm not sure I can show this to you in a way that will sound amazing because I don't have that amount of brain power right now. But I could take this red drum kit, for example, because it's a good way to show where the gates come from, right? I'll just do, let's see, which channels do we have? We have. Okay, those work. So I can just plug these in. You can hear they come at different places in the curve here. And if I change the curve.
I'm going to back out on my cropping here a little bit. There we go.
Yeah. So basically when I change the curve, different parts of this, they trigger at different places. So you can make these kind of wonky rhythms that actually does match your...
Right.
And if you did that with maybe better samples than the ones I had here,
it's
yeah,
fun. right. But even sort of like with the weird wonky samples you got going there, what I'm realizing is that you can then effectively visually create your own swing feel.
Yeah, and you can automate all these parameters
and, and shift it and move and stuff, rather than going off of a sort of percentage-based system, which is
that's a really fun thing.
That's cool.
You also have the actual curve out and an inverted curve out. So there's quite a few ways to kind of get other things to react to your sidechain pumping. You can, trigger some chord, some dub
ducker
chord,
expander kind of behavior.
Yeah. It's actually quite powerful to have these and sync them to stuff you're doing.
So Blue says, so sidechain is also an envelope generator? Question mark. Is that
exactly. So it's kind of... It's a sign of the times, I guess, that sidechain has changed meanings, like you mentioned in your video. Sidechain used to be you plug in an audio signal and you follow that signal, right? But then sidechain became, it's the ducking effect. And more and more people refer to it as that. So sidechain tool, in its most basic, is, a ducking effect that has a preset curve that you can change. It does have, it does have a sidechain mode that requires an audio input. You can also trigger the curve. But here it is a looping envelope controlling the ducking. So it is an envelope generator that way.
There's a question they're in here and they're on my list to throw up here at some point. I'll throw it up right now. A lot of people asking about the MPE support. Does it currently support MPE? Will it currently or future support MPE?
Right. It currently doesn't, and if it will in the future, I really can't answer. It's not coming in, the bug fix update for Reason 13, that's for sure.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else is going on here? Oh, something I was going to... Wait, I had a sidechain tool point. Oh, yeah, yes. Okay, I'm glad I remember this. This is a tip that I didn't mention in my video because it wasn't relevant to what I was talking about, but it is a thing that one of my own biggest that's a use for sidechain that is kind of interesting was something that came when I was watching. We did this video where Ian Kirkpatrick kind of went in and was remaking a song and really kind of going to town on it. And one of the things he did in it was he did this big build of chaos. He was like, I just want chaos. And he started throwing delays on that was just delays that weren't timed, that had really high feedback, so it was really kind of folding in on itself and really just becoming this big utter mess of delay. And while I was watching him working, I will admit, I was watching him going like, I think Ian's lost it. I think he's finally gone off the deep end. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know where he's going with this. This sounds like garbage. And then he did one thing, and all he did was he added a sidechain to it. And once he added a sidechain to it, it brought back in all the rhythmic structure to your brain, to the listener. You heard all this chaos happening, but suddenly you heard chaos happening with this like consistent beat element to it. And it just clicked. It just really made total sense. And so it was a thing I wanted to throw out there to people as a thing to try, is that sometimes you can go really over the top with Ripley and really apply it in extreme ways, and then just add the sidechain tool underneath it to kind of constrain the chaos into a rhythmic contextual framework that it really worked really well. I was impressed, as I should have.
That's also a little bit like the techno rumble, which is just kind of noisy low end. You duck with a kick, and it really becomes that kind of deep techno sound. It's really fun actually to just experiment, make noise rhythmic. Right. I saw two questions that I'd like to bring up because they're more or less feature requests, and I think they're very interesting. One person said, I think you should add a randomized order to the browser. If I'm browsing thousands of kick drum samples, I don't always want to be previewing the same in alphabetical order. And I think that's a really nice idea. That's definitely something I'm going to bring back home.
Yeah, cool. That's great.
There was also a question if you can tag recent project files. And
yes,
right now
I saw
can't.
that one. I'll throw that one up.
Yeah.
Movement 6. Yeah.
You can't right now. So that's a good question. I honestly hadn't thought about that. So I'm putting that down in my little list.
I guess while we're throwing those sort of things out, Blue asks about alias clips as well. Is that I guess the idea being, for anyone that's not familiar with the concept of aliases, that you have one clip that's kind of I guess we'll call it the sort of the home original clip, the OG clip, and then any other occurrence of that clip is an alias of it, so that you make changes to one and it ripples through. Right. Part of that behavior comes in the blocks workflow, but obviously not on a clip by clip basis. That's on a section section
exactly.
basis.
And I think that's probably part of why we haven't had it, is because the blocks has quite a bit of overlap. But I mean, if that's something people are really interested in, then we're listening and looking at what we can do. But it's not something I can say, yeah, for sure, or nope, never.
Right.
It's neither of those things.
Right. Mimi Dancer, I love odd clocked delay. I think you're talking about either just sort of those when you go into in Ripley, you can go off of the musical sync point and just go to roll your own millisecond delay, which sometimes setting it wrong can be kind of cool, and setting it wrong again. That's one of those places where the sidechain can help kind of bring it into a timed thing if you want to kind of reinforce the timing. I used to have, this is like old man Ryan tells old man stories, but like I used to have a book that was the appendix section of my Lexicon LXP 15.2 reverb unit that I had in the late 90s. And the appendix B or something was just a graph that told, it was a list of tempos and the millisecond timing that related to note divisions of that. So, you know what I mean? And I used to keep that little spiral bound.
I still have that, I think, I have an Alesis MIDI verb that if you don't sync is also just said in that way. It's like, yes, this is the milliseconds, and you can look up what it means.
I used to keep that next to my mixer, and I'd be working.
But also, it took me forever to understand, because it had a bunch of delay patches that didn't ring out, and I was really confused. And it's because you're supposed to feed it back, like in the mixer where you use it.
right, exactly.
This is really weird to me. But I think that's a good tip in general. Like all those old delays, like all the early delays, there was no clock sync, there was no MIDI.
And there's some charm to it. There's some charm to that.
It drifts a little
wrong.
bit. It's super nice.
Yeah. I think it's easy for us always to view perfect as perfect, and sometimes imperfect is perfect, and that's one of those great examples of it. So thank you, Mimi, for reminding us all. And okay, so let's see. There's some other. Oh, this question. this is, I don't know what they mean. What is the best way to slip, slide, edit guitars and audio in Reason? I'm not sure if I understand that, but it's come up a few times from Greg. I just want to give him a shot on screen if that means something to you in terms of slip, slide. I don't know if we mean
It's
like in terms of like moving, warping audio or.
I think if I remember correctly from my days in school when I used Pro Tools in a studio, it's about removing parts of it and then they collapse. If I'm wrong, please say so, Greg, but I think it's removing part of an audio stem, right? And when you do that, instead of there being a gap, it's bloop.
Oh, I see. Okay. Gotcha. I'll just throw this up. Will there be a 13 Suite edition? I don't think that is on the books, right? Reason 11 had a Suite edition, but that was like we're gonna, I guess, unique to Reason 11. That there was that little bundle for a brief time, and I think maybe the answer there, DJ, is I think Reason Plus represents that same concept of it's all the stuff, it's all the tools, all the devices. Let's see. What else?
People are correcting me. I was thinking of Ripple editing apparently, but comp edit seems to be what he's looking for.
Ah, okay, comp edit. Okay. Well, which exists. So, let's see. We love Lexicon. Yeah, I remember. I remember getting that Lexicon reverb, and people were like, oh, you got to have a Lexicon reverb. And then I got it and thought, do I? I mean, I loved it, but I don't think I had the ear to really appreciate. I think I would appreciate it actually way more now. In fact, old man Ryan tells old man stories. He had that Lexicon LXP 15.2, paid way too much for it in the late 90s. And then in the mid noughties, like 2006 or so, I was like, I'm not using it. And I ended up posting it to sell. You know how much I sold it for, Matias? $40.
I would have bought that.
Worked flawlessly. And now, to be fair, I at least get a slightly warm feeling that a dad bought it. Him and his son were working on music. But I remember thinking like, oh, that really depreciated pretty badly. And it probably went up since, it'd probably be worth way more.
Probably.
But that was the peak moment of like, who wants hardware? So
I'm glad I'm quick with the mute button, or you would have heard a lot of coughs.
Exactly. Let's see. I'm looking through some of the questions I flagged here, but Greg asks, is there still a favorites list for the browser? I think we've sort of talked about that.
Yeah, we covered that. So in the browser, there is a favorite list for patches and samples. But the request we got now after launch, and quite late in the beta, was we wanted for devices too. And the answer was that we're working on something that will let you kind of categorize all your devices and plugins in a better way.
Related to that, George wants to know, will we be able to add VSTs to favorite lists on the side window? I think maybe that's...
It's the same answer.
Same answer. Same question, same answer. What about this? Are you going to add a global key awareness to Reason in the future? Key quantizing. Mean something to you?
Yeah, sure. Like setting a song to C minor and only seeing C minor in the piano
I
roll.
see. Okay, I'm thinking of like key commands, but no, okay. I see what he's talking about. So
and I think with many of these questions, like we're not in a position to say, of course, or definitely not, because
right.
that's we have longer development cycles than that. I can't sit and say yes, exactly this is coming.
Yep.
So that's I know it's annoying when you ask very specific questions like that, but it's good that you ask them because then I see someone is really interested in it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, these live streams are as much a sort of for you. You're sort of scanning these questions, these feature suggestions that come in are as much a kind of data point for you in terms of like user,
of course,
user feedback. That's useful for you. So
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, cool. Well, Matias, you have a cold. I've already kept you longer than I said I would keep you, and I'm going to keep you just a little bit longer, but I
think it's technically a flu. I looked this up the other day, and the scientific consensus is that we don't know if it's a cold or a flu.
Right.
Which I thought was very funny. I was like, well, is it a flu or not? And then they said, well, maybe.
I teased something, and I'll probably cover it in a future video. But I teased something in my Ripley video that I thought maybe we could enlighten people about, and that is the mysterious button that's labeled button. Is that something that you could give people a little peek into?
This button?
Yeah, button and knob. They are.
Yeah, sure.
They're.
I covered that very briefly, and maybe I was not super clear. So they're
Is that what you're
basically
doing with
macro controls, like in the combinator. So you can assign the button or the knob to do something. So if you want the macro knob to turn up, I'm gonna do the same kind of stuff I just did. So let's do space amount. Let's do
I'm gonna move our faces again. I keep putting us in the wrong spot. Okay.
digital. Let's also have it bring up the noise amount. And I'll set all of those to 100%. So now, see, the knob is high, so you get all these effects. And if I turn it down, I don't.
There is
It's
something
basically just a macro control, because we thought, because Ripley has so many kind of sound design tools, it would be very useful to control multiples at once if you're doing these kind of live effects performances. So having a dedicated knob and a dedicated button to turn stuff on and off. I didn't even turn this on. Is just really useful for cool patches, I think. So that's what they are.
There is something about Ripley's mod matrix. This is just me personally. I have a love-hate with mod matrices because they give you unbeatable levels of depth and detail that you can dig in and do things and route things in ways that make it's like the best possible way to really kind of do it without just making it an utter nightmare of a GUI. And at the same time, it's like menus and stuff. And like, I've already said, it's like why I love Subtractor, because it's just hands-on tactile. It's why I love Polytone, because it's just right there. So I have this little push-pull in my own heart in terms of mod matrices. And there's something about the one in Ripley that is like, it's just enough of a mod matrix to let me get at what I need without defining the workflow. I guess that's really kind of where I see that you guys you tried to, kind of come up with the best of both worlds, where I still have the tactile access to most of the stuff right there on the front panel with the individual effects and the output routing and all that stuff. But then there's those little things where I might want to go above and beyond, and I can do that with this sort of micro mod matrix without it being the entirety of the workflow.
And I think for us, we neither love nor hate the mod matrix. It's more about what is this instrument or effect supposed to achieve, right?
Right.
Is it supposed for a lot of kind of deep sound creation where you actually want to do very specific things, but not all at once? Then a mod matrix is a really good way to do that, right?
Right.
But in Polytone, where the whole point is kind of quickly getting to classic analog synth sounds, and the mod matrix was actually distracting. And I think that's always, with every single instrument or effect we do, we treat it as a separate product.
Sure.
What is this for? What's its strength, and what do we need to add to it to make it really good at that thing, right?
Right.
To make it flexible in the right way, or rather inflexible in the right way.
Yeah, exactly. There's a question from Timantis. Maybe I'm touching maybe a little bit of aggression in the question, but I think it's a valid question. Please explain your improved sequencer claim. In what ways has it been improved? I'd really like to know. I'm going to take you as an earnest question, Timantis, and Matias, if you could give Timantis an answer that hopefully satisfies.
If you give me a sec to change the project to an actual song.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll jump off for a second.
This is just the Polytone.
Yeah, that makes way more sense. And I will also say, Timantis, a part of this answer, I would direct you to a video that I made that walks through the browser and sequencer workflow and talks about some of this in there as well. But Matias can give you a live answer as well, so that we're not just passing you over to another video on our channel.
We did cover this a little bit earlier in the stream too, so I'm going to be a little bit short, mostly because I think I have a fever. But the basic gist of, and I need to zoom out, my friend.
I'm zooming. I'm on it.
The basic gist that we've tried to really improve navigation and how you interact with the sequencer. So, for example, if you double click a clip now and want to edit it, it always zooms to fit, so you see the contents of that clip, and it opens in this edit area in a split view, so you can still navigate around the song without actually having to open and close this area all the time. We've also added all the features from the tool window and a little extra feature right here, and that means that you can actually take anything you see here, you can always interact with it either by just doing simple things like dragging the inspector up and down, right? Or doing more complex things like, say, I want to randomize the velocity of all the selected notes. I want to make a velocity ramp out of the selected notes, and so on. So it's kind of quicker access to stuff that you do a lot. Same is true for audio.
I'll just throw in there as well.
Yeah.
Quicker access to stuff that you may not do a lot, but now we'll do a lot. That's where I found it.
Yeah.
Like the randomizer of timing on notes and stuff. That's a thing that I never did using the tool window, and I do quite frequently now, where I'll just kind of give a little bit shift to the MIDI notes to give it a little more human kind of randomization.
Right.
So it actually brings things to the forefront.
Yeah, there's also a lot of just presentation here, but I think one big thing is audio now actually defaults to an overview edit rather than throwing you into either slice, vocal, or comp all the time. Could be quite frustrating. It went to a mode that you didn't really want. So in overview, you can do all the, cutting and changing sizes and doing the fade in, fade out, reversing, normalizing, and so on.
Right.
You also still have the slice marker. So if I use the, wrong key, sorry. If I use the razor, for example, it snaps to slices when I hover in this top area, making it quicker to kind of cut out a little phrase, for example, and work with that and say, I want to reverse and normalize this. So it's a lot of those features primarily. Like when you talk about workflow, it is a lot about how you work, right? How you quickly get to things and making sure you don't spend time navigating back and forth. So that's what we spent a lot of time on in this update. And that's true also for stuff like zooming, where we added this drag zoom to the top bar, both in the arrangement and edit area. We made sure there's a zoom to selection and follow song in both these areas, so they never kind of conflict with each other. There's also both pinch zooming if you have a trackpad. There's several of those navigation things.
Right.
I think that would be the short form answer of what the main sequencer improvements are. It's about how you get around in the sequencer and kind of how you get to what you need to do.
Right. Let's see here.
It's interesting. Someone said I had an easier time in 12 navigating, and I think that could be just objectively true. But I think most of the times it really is because you're used to it right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it really it does take more than a day to get used to a new workflow.
I had a couple of moments on my own. There's this thing where you go like, it's funny to think about because when it happened maybe twice, and I was like, okay, let me change my default reaction here. Where I would go, what? They took this away? And then I'd ask you guys, like, you took this away? And like, no, it's over here now. Oh, actually, that makes sense where it is now. Okay, you sort of realize it like, so there's just that little learning curve there. Which is inevitable. If you do a workflow update and you kind of reapproach the workflow, you're going to change your workflow. That's just what happens,
Yeah, but and like I said before, I think a big part of doing these kind of redesigns is that it also enables us to do more things. So, for example, now that we have this area that's really good for putting stuff you might want to do with the selected items.
Yeah.
Then we can add more stuff that you might want to do with the selected items, right? So, for example, we added this make ramp function as an interesting test and something you do a lot with drums, right? And there's definitely more things we could add here now that it kind of makes more sense in the workflow.
Right.
So a lot of that is also important.
Absolutely. Audio Muscle says, good grief, Ryan, let Matias go. He needs to water his plant and eat some soup. I agree with Audio Muscle here. Matias.
I did eat soup for lunch. It was very tasty.
I think we are going to let you go because I have selfishly occupied.
The most important question came up. Is everything explained in the manual? Is the manual up to date? Yes.
It is. That is correct.
It really is.
And a shout out to Fredrik Hillevander, who
Fredrik has worked super hard on that manual, so it's fresh and good to go. And as always, like I'm one of those people. People always say read the fucking manual, and half the people who say that don't do it themselves. I'm the kind of person where I have a synced Dropbox folder with all the manuals for all the gear I own and have ever bought, so I can always read the manual.
There you go.
And you do learn tons of stuff. Tons of little features and shortcuts and things you didn't think you could do might be right there.
I read the manual, the the start. I'm a read manual from the get-go, but I tend to not go back.
For the title page.
No. I'll read it. When I first started learning to record and stuff, I got a Mackie mixer and I got some other gear and stuff. And I sat for 2 weeks. I didn't even turn it on. Didn't even plug it in. Just read the manuals, before I even, dared approach it. So, I'm a fan of the manuals, but I tend to, it's like, and it's the same way with books. I don't reread a book. I read it and then I've read it. So, but yes, check the manual, guys. It is up to date. And otherwise, stay tuned on our channel. We're going to have more coming here. We'll be surely doing more live streams. We'll surely be doing more, tutorials from myself and others that are on our channel. And, we got a lot more to say and a lot more to show about Polytone, about Ripley, about the 3 new utility tools, all of which I'm just such a big fan of and have made, partially because they're in my world because I've been making content with them. But, when I get this lovely thing where I get to make new content and really dive into these devices, and then they really become part of my go-to reach for devices. So I'm excited to have new tools. I'm sure you all are too. So, Matias.
I am. I'm going to spend my entire vacation making music.
You're gonna now. This is. I'm gonna guess also that you're about to embark on a few sick days, and you'll probably be. This is that weird thing where it's like, I'm too sick to work and reason. I can't. Okay, now I'm just gonna sit on the couch and work and reason. But it's like,
yeah, perfect timing for Midsummer's Eve.
Yeah, exactly. It's Midsummer. When is Midsummer? Is that this weekend?
Friday. Yeah, Friday.
Oh, big Swedish holiday.
I'm gonna be all alone with this.
Oh, boo, guys! Pour one out for Matias, and I don't know, thoughts and prayers or whatever.
This guy will be super happy.
There you go.
Right now, he's not very happy because he's sleeping.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you feel bad, and I just, on behalf of the Reason community, I want to thank you for, pulling it together a little bit to talk with us and give us some time and for letting me abuse that generosity with a little extra time.
That's okay.
But cool. Well, listen, Matias, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to say goodbye to folks here for a, in some ways I'm calling this a truncated Reason live stream. We've still been on an hour and a half. I mean, I don't know what world we call an hour and a half a truncated one, but obviously there's a lot more that we can and will be talking about. So we're going to do that. I'm going to throw this song on while I say goodbye to you. Sean Murray, Reason demo song. Check this one out. It's in Reason 13. It's a really, really great track. It makes use of Polytone. It makes use of Ripley. And there's really fun stuff to dive in and see how Sean's putting that together. And guys, we will be seeing you on the channel as usual. More content coming up. Stay tuned to our socials. There's a lot of stuff that we're posting right now in this post-release period, both with the stuff that we've been putting out, that I've been putting out, but also stuff that some other folks on our channel have been putting out, and on our Instagram reels and stuff. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Check it out. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to check out, a lot to learn, a lot of new things to show off and discover. I think that's maybe the most fun part, is there's a lot for us individually to discover in our own music making, using these new devices, this new workflow, whether you're in Reason Rack plugin or the Reason DAW. So folks, have a great rest of your day. I hope you're all going to go make some music, because that is absolutely what I'm about to do. I do that every time after a live stream. I get inspired, Matias shows me something. I'm going to go play with that envelope generator. We've got an envelope generator with CV outputs via sidechain tool. That's my afternoon. So listen, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys soon on the Reason live stream.